One of the things we know that comes out of near-death research is at times when people are in deep meditation, they can have spontaneous near-death-like experiences. And one of the things I know about the technology that we use at the Monroe Institute is that it's an audio technology, binaural beats, that allow us to hold and maintain a expanded state of awareness for a long period of time. And we can hold something for 45 minutes or so. And that gives us plenty of time to get used to expanded states of awareness and then be able to use some of the tools to navigate around there. Or if we have contact with a deceased relative, we can have time for a conversation. And so, and I don't know why it took me so long, but about 5 years ago, I was in a conversation about near-death experiences, and it occurred to me that here we have this wonderful technology at the Monroe Institute that allows us to enter very specific states of consciousness that allow us to do some rather extraordinary exploration, and I'd never used it to go to the locales that people who've had near-death experiences go to. So I started experimenting. And eventually, I figured out that it's not that hard to be able to go and meet our guides, who then can help us explore the tunnel. And we can have a reunion with our dead relatives. We can have a life review. We can meet with angelic or divine beings. We can go to this realm of all knowledge. Some people call that the Akashic Records. So there's an opportunity to visit crystal cities, to work with the people that help us organize our life here in the physical. So they're kind of our team, our advisory team. So when we construct this life, we get lots of different inputs, and they help us organize that thing. And then we have the ability to play with time a little bit. One of the things that we know is that we can visit ourselves in this life at different ages. And so I can visit with myself at age 8, 15, 25, and upwards. I can visit my future self, and so I can have this conversation with younger selves and future selves to get advice about who I am in this life. Case in point, I had a guy, his name was Stephen. He's a big guy. I want you to picture this guy. He's like 275 pounds and 0 fat. He's just, and early in his life, he was a cop, and he was on a SWAT team. He was in the military, special forces, and eventually got hurt in one of those jobs, and then he wound up being a professional bodyguard, liked that for a little while, but then decided that maybe the role of entrepreneurship is better for him, and he's now got a very successful company. Anyway, so he came to the workshop, and he was there with his wife, and she was the one who was really kind of into this sort of thing, and he was kind of supporting, and he told me that, and he says, well, you know, don't worry about me, I'll just be fine, and if nothing else, I'll just sleep through the week. Okay, well, we come to this exercise, and afterwards he comes down, and here's this big guy, and he's got just tears streaming down his face. I said, Stephen, what happened? And he said, I had this crystal clear experience with myself at 8, and at 12, and at 15, and 21, and 35 years old. And you know what happened? He says, I turned to the 8-year-old, and the 8-year-old walked right up to me and poked me in the chest. And he said, do you remember what happened? Do you remember what we used to do on Saturday afternoons? And you go, what are you talking about? No, really, don't you remember what we used to do? And he said, well, the 8-year-old answered the question for him. We used to go and fly kites. We used to stand on the dunes by the ocean, and the wind would come up, hit the dunes, and there would be this terrific updraft. And we would sit and fly kites and become one with the wind and the sun and the sand. It was an extraordinary experience. We had such a good time doing that. Why aren't we doing that anymore? And the answer was, of course, that he had led a life where he had to shut off parts of himself in order to be a cop, in order to be a special forces person, in order to do the hard jobs that he needed to do to keep himself emotionally protected. But he wasn't doing that anymore, and he still kept those guards in place. And so now when he travels, what's the first thing in his suitcase? He puts in a kite. Because now he understands that he can be vulnerable. He can let go of some of those old things that aren't serving him anymore, and he can be like the little boy and incorporate that kind of wonder and joy at being outside. So that's the kind of thing that can happen at our workshop. I had another guy, his name was Jack. And Jack had cared for his wife for 10 years as she went through the ravages of Alzheimer's disease. And at the end, when she couldn't speak anymore, and the communication between the two of them really changed. And it was much more intuitive. And they became very good at communicating and understanding what each other was trying to communicate. And when she finally died of the disease, he would say that he was a lost soul, that he missed her terribly, and that he really wanted to have that relationship again, and thought that he might be able to at a workshop like this. Well, one of the very first exercises that we do is that we go and get our guides, and we establish communication with our guides, and they help us move around the non-physical universe. Well, yeah, I mean, I'm telling you this story because, poof, right away, there was Pat, his wife, and for the whole week, she was there with him and showed him all around the non-physical universe, showed him what she was doing and what she was interested in, how she was keeping up with the friends and family, and how that veil between this world and the next world is so thin. And she really was able to help establish this connection, and they talked all week, and they still talk. And it's a great comfort to Jack to be able to know that she's okay and she's having fun, and she obviously no longer suffers from Alzheimer's. She appears to him like she was in the prime of life when they were first married. So there's that kind of healing that can take place too, where somebody who is really bereft because of the loss of a spouse, I mean, they've been married 60 years. Well, they're still communicating, and they're still sharing their love across that very thin boundary. I created this near-death experience workshop at the Monroe Institute using the techniques of the Monroe Institute because we know they work, they're very specific, and after a while, once you kind of get the hang of it, you can dump the technology. You don't need it anymore. What you really begin to understand is that it's a feeling, that going into these expanded states of awareness is a feeling. And if you can recall the feeling, you can recall the space. You can then touch base with, your younger self, or you can touch base with a departed loved one, or a guide, or, whomever you want to have communicate with in the non-physical realm. So it's not something that you're tethered, but it teaches you skills that you can use and develop on your own as you move through and get more information, more communication, and your guides will then help you become better at at whatever it is that you want to do in the non-physical universe. So I like very much that we have these tools that are good at navigating the non-physical universe, and we have a tool called HemiSync, which you use it for a while and then you don't need it anymore because you have incorporated the skill into your practice, and whenever you need it, it's there for you. So out of this near-death experience workshop, it became really clear that I could take individual exercises that are kind of the core pieces of that week-long workshop and create CDs of them. And they were created, produced by Monroe Products, which has now been renamed HemiSync. And I think they're terrific. I mean, what else would I say? I think they're terrific. So you can go and visit your dead relatives. You can have a life review. You can go to the Akashic Records. You can go to the Crystal Cities. It can explore the tunnel, which, by the way, is really cool. There's all kinds of really good information that's in the tunnel. You can learn how to meet your guides and develop your communication with them. I've got 2 more that are coming out. One is an exploration of the black light, and the other is the exploration of the clear light. Those 2 are important because in near-death experiences, there are 3 kinds of light. There's white, black, and clear. Everybody knows the white light. That's the one that's the white light at the end of the tunnel. But there are 2 more kinds of experiences. Black light is this loving, nurturing space that some people will call one-pointedness, but virtually everybody that is in that space talks to me about it, and they do this. They cross their arms and they lean forward and they say, I was never so nurtured. I felt like I was hugged and loved unconditionally. Actually, it felt like I was in the womb of God. So we take you to that place. That one's called Embracing Love. And the one that will be coming out not too far from now is called Radiating Love, and that's the experience of clear light. And clear light is really different. It happens most often with shared near-death experiences like mine, and that's where the light doesn't come from the outside or you enter it. It just means that everything in the universe lights up, and that the light emanates from everywhere. And so you don't have to go anywhere, it just is. And you begin to experience this incredible love, and you begin to understand how connected we are to everything else. So it's that kind of experience that we're doing with that one. It's called Radiating Love. So we have these core pieces that will be available to anybody. Of course, the advantage of coming to a workshop is that we have a group, and there is tremendous benefit to group energy. And we have 20 people all doing exactly the same thing at the same time, and it just you're able to explore really easily. And in addition, you get to hang out with 20 other souls that like to talk about the same things you do. So it's a wonderful freeing week in that you get a chance to, be with your tribe. And it's just great fun.